In this video, we're going to look at fiscal policy. So there are two different types of fiscal policy. There's discretionary fiscal policy, which is where the United States government, the president and Congress, have to pass a law in order to change either taxes or government spending. And then there are automatic stabilizers. So we're going to talk about discretionary policy first. When we look at discretionary policy, there's expansionary policy when the government is trying to expand GDP and increase where we currently are. So right here, if our current GDP is at $17.5 trillion, the United States government wants to do something to try and push us to our $8 trillion real GDP that we want to get to be at our full employment level of real GDP. And they can do two different things. They can increase, so the first thing that they can do is they can increase government spending, or they could decrease taxes. I guess they could actually do a third thing, a combination of the two. But the two tools they have are to change spending or to change taxes. Because if we remember, aggregate demand is equal to C plus I plus G plus X minus M. Okay, so that means that if they increase government spending, that would cause aggregate demand to go up. Or if they lower taxes, which will increase consumption, that would cause aggregate demand to go up. So both of those things could increase aggregate demand. So their goal is to get to our full employment level of real GDP. And the way that they do that is try and stimulate aggregate demand so that we could ultimately get to aggregate demand 2. So we need to increase GDP by $500 billion. So aggregate demand 2, is going to bring us to this intersection of our full employment level of real GDP. Okay, so this is what the fiscal policy is going to be trying to do. Okay, obviously this is what we call expansionary policy. Okay, so this is expansionary fiscal policy by using discretionary means, meaning changing government spending. If we were to look at contractionary policy, it's the exact opposite. It's when we're trying to slow the economy down. We're in an overheating economy. We need to decrease aggregate demand. So there we would obviously decrease government spending or increase taxes. So there are times when the government needs to spend more money because we're going into war, or we're trying to get everybody to have health care coverage. Okay, so that increase in government spending is not fiscal policy. It's only fiscal policy if the reason that the government is trying to spend more money is to increase aggregate demand to bring us to full employment level of real GDP, or to decrease aggregate demand to bring us to our potential GDP. Okay, so only when they're trying to change aggregate demand is it fiscal policy. All right, so this is discretionary fiscal policy. The other one that I said that we were also going to look at is when we use automatic stabilizers to fix problems with the economy. So if we were to look at the economy over time and we see that we have GDP and time, so this is going to be gross domestic product and this is going to be time. Now I'm just going to do a quick graph of what our GDP over time might possibly look like. Okay, so up and down and up and down and up and up and up and up and up. All right. Let's say that that is our gross domestic product over time. Now, automatic stabilizers, this is when there's no bill that needs to be passed by the president and Congress in order to fix the problems with the economy. These are things that are built into our economy to try and make it so that when we are in a recession, it's not as bad as it could be. So basically, it's just going to kind of lop off that curve that's really bad, and it's going to kind of slow down these peaks so that they're not quite as steep, and it'll kind of make, some sort of a graph that'll kind of help our economy to be something more like this instead of quite so steep. Okay, so the blue line would be what our economy would be like without automatic stabilizers, and the red line is what it's like with the automatic stabilizers. So we can see that the peaks and the valleys just aren't as extreme. So what are these automatic stabilizers that are already built into the economy? Well, these are things that when GDP is low, when there's a decrease in GDP, these are things that will help to increase aggregate demand without any government intervention. Okay, so one of the things is the fact that we have a progressive tax system. When GDP is falling, income is falling. When income is falling, the percent of taxes that you pay actually goes down, alleviating some of the recession by having more disposable income for people in times when GDP falls. Okay, so that's one of the things, is the progressive tax system that we have. Another thing is anytime that GDP is really low, during these times, we have more government transfer payments happening. So there are more people getting food stamps, there are more people getting welfare, there are more people getting government benefits that will allow them to buy more goods and services. Okay, obviously the exact opposite is true when GDP goes up. When GDP increases and our economy is possibly overheating or getting too hot or going too fast, things that are going to slow it down are that people are going to have to pay a little bit more as a percentage of their income and taxes, and also there would be fewer people on welfare and getting government payments, ceteris paribus. Okay, so fiscal policy. In the next video, we're going to look a little bit more about fiscal policy and how much money we have to put in the economy to close this gap.